hope they're back from their break. Our writers on this show, Jim Krieg and the writer and story creator, Eric Carrasco. I'm not bringing them in order, so it's kind of confusing at times. Our director on this movie, Sam Liu. I said, Sam Liu! They're not coming out unless you applaud. That's the rule now. We good? All right, Sam's picking a spot. This is good. I usually say the architect of modern superhero animation, but tonight we got to look at him without his glasses, and we decided he is actually the living embodiment of Johnny Quest, Bruce Timm! How about our Miss Martian tonight? Did you dig Miss Martian in this movie? Say hi to Daniela Bobadilla. Mono was very imposing. I love him. He's fully fleshed out. We love that. Say hi to Philip Anthony Rodriguez. And his girlfriend, sort of. That's a relationship I don't want to be in. The Emerald Empress herself, Smalley Montano. Sorry, I blew it. Emmy-nominated Philip Anthony Rodriguez. Just got an Emmy nomination the other day.
Thank you.
You loved him on Scorpion. You might remember him from the first couple of seasons of Game of Thrones. He is our star boy. Say hi to Thomas Keller himself, Elyes Gabel. Last but not least, our Trinity from the Justice League and Justice League Unlimited. Let's start with Superman, George Newbern. Wonder Woman, Susan Eisenberg. He is the night. He is vengeance. He is Kevin Conroy. This is what you call an all-star panel. This is a clock we're just throwing out. Bruce, let's start with you. Let's get it over with because we're all aching to hear it. Is this DCAU canon?
As far as I'm concerned, I think it is. I know this sounds like I'm hedging, but it really isn't up to me because, man, people out there in fan land are like, they have like detailed timelines, and this is canon and that isn't, and that comic over here is canon because it was mentioned in this one episode, and I'm like, okay. So, but I mean, yeah, I think it is. I mean, it's weird because this story did not start intended to be Justice League Unlimited Plus. It was originally supposed to be a standalone story, really complicated series of events. We kind of backed into it, becoming a Justice League Unlimited adjacent story. So once we realized that was going to happen, we leaned into it, and I think it is. So yes, it's canon. There's your headline.
So Eric, what was the genesis for this story? How did you guys come up with this? There's a lot of David and Lisa in this.
There is. I got a call that we were going to make a Justice League versus the Fatal Five movie, and I think it was because these guys knew I was a giant Legion of Superheroes fan, and so I came in and that was it. It was like having a writing prompt. go. The sky's the limit. All of the DC universe is available to you. And so sat in a room with Jim and with Alan Burnett, who is enjoying his blissful retirement right now. And with Bruce, and we just sort of improved our way through the story. And working backward from the Fatal Five, we used Starboy, knowing that someone was going to have to come back in time with them to tell us about him. And we thought he would find a great companion in Jessica Cruz. Yeah.
Thanks. What? I mean, these are the feels. Jessica has her anxiety. Starboy has his issues, and these are pretty common things these days. It was a very relative story. How did you guys go about playing with that?
Very respectfully.
We tried to take it really seriously. We tried to handle it as responsibly as we could. And sort of the thing about the reason we go to Arkham specifically, and the reason Two-Face has that awesome cameo, is because we really think that in superhero stories, a lot of the time, neuroatypical people with mental illness, they get stigmatized, they become villains in these stories a lot of the time. And so we wanted to take two people who were going through some challenges, and hopefully some relatable challenges, and put them in a situation where we could just get out of their way and let them be superheroes.
But Joker's still evil.
Joker's evil.
Elyes, you had a lot of layers to deal with this. How did you approach Thomas?
Well, I think it's a testament to what the themes of the writing were, the touchstones of the character were that, just like I suppose most characters or most of the heroes, they go through the challenges and they go through an element of sacrifice, and they have a deep well of sadness, of lamentation, or whatever you call it. But struggling with that and overcoming it for a particular purpose and finding meaning, it was very, very evident in the writing. So it was easy to jump into the challenge, and there were a lot of layers there. But it was a fun exercise to try out.
A quick shout out. I think you might have had a little help in the booth. We have Wes Gleason, our
Oh my
fine
gosh.
voice director, out there in the audience.
Wes, stand up, give a Wes. Well, yes. Does he want to stand? He doesn't want to stand. Wes was integral in terms of, first of all, communicating, and the language in which he uses to communicate. To communicate the themes that are so evident, and also what the struggle that from my perspective, Starboy was going through. It was a very, very lucidly explained experience, and I think that's what you want when you're dealing with that kind of a great challenge.
And Somali and Philip, you two. Yeah, look at those lovebirds.
You ripped my face off.
Sorry about that. Wayward hand.
Somali, was this your first villain role? And you two seem to eat this up like a buffet.
It was so fun. I think that you guys started a little bit of a villain baddie run for me. We recorded this a while ago, and I feel very fortunate. I played a lot of heroes, and this is the first, she's mean. I mean, she's evil. But I loved it. I'm so happy to have the opportunity. Yay!
I'm ready for a Mad About You type spin-off of these two characters, though. Oh, I just dated myself, didn't I?
I know.
Said Mad About
I was
You.
gonna say Mad
And they're
About
going,
You.
huh? What's that? To bring it back to the 21st century.
You could have said Dick Van Dyke and really pushed it, so you're all right. And Danny, you got to introduce Miss Martian to this realm.
I did. And I can't even tell you guys how excited I am. If Miss Martian is excited, I'm triple excited. I mean, I'm beside legends here. And I can't even handle myself. And I can't take credit for it. The writing was amazing. The directing was amazing. The booth directing. Yeah, it's just, she was written right on the page. I mean, her first line I'm Miss Martian, jackass. That's it. You know the character, so I'm very honored.
How long have you guys been looking for a movie to reunite our Justice League voices?
Like forever. I mean, you know, it's not, like I said, it's kind of odd because it didn't start as a Justice League Unlimited production. We had already cast the Jessica Cruz part and the Starboy part because we knew those were going to be our main characters. So we thought, well, how are we going to make Superman, Batman, and Wonder Woman pop if we're not going to be casting, you know, like celebrity actors? And then it's like, well, of course, Susan, Kevin, and George are awesome. So it's like, you know, that was like a, you know, low-hanging fruit. So once we got them on board, it was like, oh, this is a kind of a little mini Justice League Unlimited thing. I'll tell you guys straight up, if this movie does well, now that we've all gotten our feet back into the Justice League pool, you know, the chances are much better that we would come back and do another Justice League Unlimited movie. This is a total blast, and
Yes.
we would love.
Yes,
to
I'm coming back too. Yes.
We would love to bring back Phil Lamar and Marie Canals and Carl Lumley as well if we do this again. So, you know, you guys gotta vote with your pocketbook. I hate to say it, I hate to be so mercenary, but you know, if it does well,
And that
hopefully
starts
you will be paying attention.
And that starts tomorrow on digital. Blu-ray 4K on April 16th. Very good. Well, trio, Trinity, give me the degree of fun this is for you
It
guys
was
to
great.
get back
It was
together.
great getting back together. You know? We all established these relationships years and years ago. And when you get back together, it's like getting back together with someone that you haven't seen from college in 20 years or something. You just pick up a sentence the way you left it off 20 years ago. You know, you just pick up the threads of those friendships. And that's what it was like for us, wasn't it?
Cape was a little tight. Cape was a little tight, but it fit.
It was a little tight.
And I
Yeah,
have
the
a sword.
tights are a little.
And I have a sword. I have a sword, you guys.
Yeah.
No, I mean, if anyone knows me, they know that I'm overjoyed and blissed out and so grateful to be able to voice this character again. I mean, I haven't seen her since 2006, and boy, I've missed her.
Great.
You get into the booth, there is no issue rekindling that voice. I mean, it's ingrained, correct?
Who are you talking to?
Well, the three of you, because I see you in
Susan
there all-
does that voice in her sleep. It's her innate sexuality.
It's in the sauce.
Kevin.
Wonder Woman.
I mean, I think that it's so comfortable at this point, and
Yeah.
you know, working with the three of us, you know, we're missing 4 people, but other than that, it was magical.
Yep. And having Bruce back in the booth was
Oh,
just a
magic.
thrill. Bruce Tim.
It's just such a great group. What I love about the story, though, is also, I mean, the way it touched on, there were some references that just jumped out at me, the way it touched on sort of the intersection of genius and mental illness, which I thought was so interesting when he said, I'm not on my clozapine now. I mean, there were contemporary references that I just thought were really fascinating and brave, and I really admired.
Yeah, for sure. And how many people enjoyed those music cues? Those music cues.
I do believe 2/3 of the dynamic music partners, Michael McCuistion and
Here they
Chris
are.
Carter, are right out there in the audience. You guys have any questions? Who's got the microphone? Oh, there we go. There we go. Okay, rule here is, number 1, we know you love us, or them, me, whatever. But you don't need to state all that. Just get to your questions so somebody else can get to theirs. 2, tell us your name. 3, who was your favorite character in the movie?
Oh, no. Now you're gonna spark a war, mate.
Oh, yeah.
Lobbying.
Hi. Oh, cool. Awesome. First off, my name is Chris. Loved the movie. Thought it was awesome. I thought probably my favorite character that I wasn't really expecting to see was Harvey Dent. I was like, oh my god, the animated series is awesome.
Who did that voice?
Who did the voice? That was me.
Nice.
Was it you?
Me. Yeah, it was pitched down a little bit, but yeah, I can kind of do that voice.
Wow.
That was great.
That's awesome. Thank you.
Been watching the animated series for years. Trinity, love you guys. Has there ever been talks of like doing like a multi-universe movie, like a multiverse movie of like having the New 52 Rebirth and like the animated series all like come into one universe?
Bruce?
Yes, that has come up. More than that, I cannot say. Good question.
Next.
You are an awesome Cyclops.
Hi, my name is Luke, and I don't have any favorites.
You don't have a
You guys are all awesome.
Good answer.
Thank you, Luke.
My question is, in the movie, when the eyes sucked out all the power from the Lantern Corps, why didn't the Lanterns all lose their power?
Yes, Eric. I was wondering that too. Why was that?
That's a great question. The Green Lanterns have their portable lanterns that they can charge to. They're charged by the central battery, but then they had their little portable lanterns too, and they work like a battery, so they're probably running out of battery at a certain point, but then we fixed it.
Yeah, Elon Musk was on that, right?
Good question.
Good job, Luke.
Total stressful.
Your name is?
He was paying attention.
My name's Edgardo.
Hey, Edgardo.
Hey, so, favorite character, that's very hard to decide, but I would say Starboy just because of what he had to deal with throughout, making it complex in the sense that he still had to be a hero, regardless of, his forgetfulness and,
being naked.
Very tragic.
We are born with challenges then, sir.
Yeah. Now my question is, and it's for the cast. What types of techniques did you guys do in order to prepare for these roles? Because it's just so amazing on how you guys portrayed these iconic roles and how you just fit them perfectly.
I didn't let Elyes have his meds for a week.
I stayed with Gary, so I stole his. I defer to him.
Yeah. It's a big cast.
Yeah.
Well, I think that a lot of people think that voice acting is about making funny voices, and it's more than that. It's acting. It's voice acting, and it's creating a full character, but you only have your voice to tell the story. And I think each actor finds a hook into the character that is unique for them, a way into the soul of the character. For me, it's the moment that he saw his parents die as a child. That's always the moment I go to that brings me back to that sort of Batman voice, that deep sadness of that voice. And I think each of us have a specific thing that's a key into the character. Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah, great question.
Good one, Edgardo. Yes, sir.
Hi, my name is Andres, and my favorite character, of course, is my fictional mentor, the Dark Knight.
My soulmate.
My question is, as an interner at Walt Disney Television and Animation, how many takes did it take to get the perfect voice for each scene?
It varies. Sometimes you just go with their first take. We usually do multiple takes. We do an interesting technique where quite often we'll have the actor take 3 shots in a row of each individual line, and it works really well because sometimes it's like it takes the nervousness off of getting that first take exactly right. So you almost get like 2 free shots, and then on the third one you nail it. And then sometimes they nail it exactly the first time. But these guys are all pros. We weren't sitting there struggling with any of the lines for like, oh my God, take 27. So it was all pretty smooth sailing.
But what's interesting about that's an interesting question because uniquely, The hardest lines often are the one-syllable lines. You'd be amazed at how many times you have to go over to get the perfect no. You know, I mean, you're just going over and over. Whereas the epic speech, you might get in one take. And they go, Bruce will go, perfect, love it, it's in the can. But how many times have you been in there and you're going, no, try it again, no,
It's
try
like,
it again.
no,
Like,
no,
no. No. It's unbelievable, the one-syllable line.
Absolutely true.
Could you emphasize the O more so than the N? Put less emphasis.
Yeah, exactly. We have a no.
Right.
Do you mind if I weigh in on this? That's a really interesting point that Kevin made, because the smaller the economy of word, and I'm speaking from a position of being relatively new to voice animation, I found that the less economy or real estate that you have to use, the less you are afforded the opportunity of filling it with filling it.
Right.
You have to be authentic, and you have to get to that place. And there is a theme associated. I know it sounds really indulgent, but it's not. It's true. There's a theme, from my perspective, associated with every single word. And that's why the voice is so important when, you know, that's what you're hired for, to give that meaning, or to accompany the meaning to the picture. But it's very important, because you don't have all that real estate to jump off.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, you don't have your body, you don't have your face, you don't have any of the tools that you normally have, and sometimes you don't even have pictures. Sometimes it's not animated before you get to voice it. So this is what I love, and it's so challenging, and in my opinion, a little bit more challenging than actual acting, because you don't have the other person sometimes to feed off of. You have to use your imagination. I think that's why I love it so much, because you get to just live in your head, and if anything, it's acting more from your heart than it is from your mind, as you're seeing everything else if you were to be on a set. So I
That's
love
where
it.
the voice director is so important, because the voice director paints the scene for you. I mean, you may have read the script, of course, before you went to your session, but when you're in the studio, the voice director, Wes Gleason, will set the scene and bring you back in, and then it's your job to imagine you in that scene.
Because remember, the voices are the first stage of the process. We're not voicing to artwork. It's done like a radio play. So we're just creating these images in our heads out of the script. And then those recordings go off to the artists, and the paintings are made.
It's even harder for me when you don't have a face at all. And then sometimes you derive something that is special to you. Creating Mono for me was what I like to say a hybrid of Ricardo Montalban from Space Seed Khan and Star Trek Wrath of Khan, and the other 50% was probably my dad, God rest his soul. And just looking at my dad punishing me. There was never corporal punishment, never yelling, but he would just look at me and say, "You stop it right now." And then, so that's my dad, and that became Mono for me.
Awesome.
I just think of anyone who's pissed me off, and then I put all my anger into them, and then I start to voice the Empress.
All right, thank you. Next.
Okay. Hello, my name is Stefan. I'm a great fan of your artworks. I have a question for Starboy, the writers, and the directors. I liked how you I'm sorry, a little nervous. I like how you portrayed Melanie in a very sensitive but also very respectful way, and how Jessica and Starboy had to help each other. What was the challenges of doing that while still keeping the flavor of the characters?
It's there in the page in the comic books. We were pulling a lot from the Justice Society comics that Jeff Johns and David Goyer and Dale Eaglesham did, and we were pulling a lot from the Green Lanterns comics right now that Sam Humphries is writing, where Jessica's anxiety is at the forefront, and we just wanted to treat it respectfully. And in kind of early conversations, Jim and I found this movie that we both really loved called David and Lisa, which is what Gary was talking about earlier. It's like a 1962 movie about two people in a mental institution, a mental hospital.
Keir Delay.
Yeah.
Keir Delay.
and it's a great play and it's a great movie, and they sort of find each other and help each other find these little moments of grace and heal a little bit because they both kind of understand each other, and we wanted to strike that kind of relationship between Starboy and Jessica, and that kind of became the whole engine for the movie.
There's a little bit of flowers for Algernon in there too, as you see Starboy's facilities, kind of evaporating. It's a little heartbreaking.
Yeah, he's kind of on a journey to remembering the hero he was, while Jessica's discovering, her own bravery and heroism. So,
yeah, I can only speak to what was on the page because most of it was part of it was the story that I was fortunate enough to get a hold of a character. But what I found in the booth, there was a lot of generosity. Wes, Roots, Sam, in terms of allowing the expression to whatever degree, I was very, very eager to explore, and it was all written that way. That there were so many different layers, but a lot of it was born of that search to get back to what the character was, empowerment, to employ meaning and also have significance over there as well. And I found that every time I was reading and every time that we were, there were some really great paradoxical moments where there was a lot of comedy, where I had some pudding, but it was all very true. And I think that search for the truth, it hopefully allows, and it read to me, that it allows you to invest in the characters and their journey and the challenges that they're faced with. They're a lot younger than these iconic characters in terms of the way that they're narrative characters. So you're seeing them go through all these challenges, and I think, to employ that mental illness, to have the struggle and the challenge of having to take medication and fighting against that, you have the tenacity that's born, and you even see that with the Lanson character, with Jessica's character, is that she sees her people being destroyed, and then there is a certain amount of there's a darkness that you have to go through. There's the light and the shade, and to get to that place. And I thought that there was very much a pendulum where they both helped each other out, and they both acknowledged this place that they were in. And I thought that was a really harmonious, sad, but also beautiful way to root where my character was within the story. Thanks for the question, man.
Yes, sir. My name is Elyes, and my favorite superhero is Superman, of course. I'm sorry.
Now wait just a minute.
Usually the person behind the last...
He's 80 years old, don't listen to this.
I didn't say how I voted.
My question is for everybody, especially for Kevin and Bruce. I'm sorry. Like I said, I'm always the person behind the last on the microphone, so this is the farthest that I ever got.
Wow, congratulations.
Yeah, I made it. So what were the challenges of bringing the spirit of the original characters back to life? Because even though you've been doing you, Bruce, and Kevin are doing some other projects with the same characters, but it's sometimes they do it a darker tone, or how do you find the original tone closest to the original spirit of the characters that you made like 20 years ago?
Oh, go ahead. Kevin. Oh, I'm sorry, somebody else. I was gonna say, for me, Batman works completely differently when he's with the Justice League. When he's all by himself, the stories tend to be darker and more full of angst. And when he's part of the team, he's a real smartass. I mean, he jokes, but his jokes are always kind of snarky and kind of borderline ugly. So, that's kind of like, we kind of front load that into the scripts. And then of course Kevin can nail all that stuff. So
because I'm so snarky and
yeah, it's horrible to be with. Just man, you guys don't know. So, but yeah, so it's pretty. I don't know. We've had a little bit of practice doing it, so it's not that hard at this point.
we know. I feel like we know these characters pretty well. So there's always more to explore. which is wonderful about playing Batman because he's so complicated. There's always more to explore. But I think it's sort of like a comfortable suit at this point. I think for all of us, we know these characters pretty well.
Yeah, and when we went to the session and I saw what she looked like, I mean, there she was, and it was, I just fell right back into it. I mean, I went into the hallway and said, "Great Hera," like a few times, and then I didn't get a single Great Hera.
No.
Now that I'm thinking about it.
No Great Hera.
Sorry. Next time.
Next time.
We got a great row.
Yeah, we got one great row.
If this sells really well, tomorrow on digital, April 16th on Blu-ray, no pressure. Our next film will be Wonder Woman, Great Hera. Yes, sir.
Hi, my name is Josh. My favorite character was Miss Martian.
Right on.
Wow, thank you.
My question is for the writers and Kevin and Daniela. What was it like writing the banter between Batman and Miss Martian and voicing those scenes?
Good question.
I actually, the first time my friend John Callan saw this movie, he went, "Oh, you wrote Miss Martian as yourself. You accidentally wrote a character that was all about how terrified you were of writing this movie." And I went, "Holy cow, I absolutely did." So I really relate to you.
Wow.
Because it was walking into a room with Bruce and with Alan and with Jim and talking through all these characters. And I think it was writing the Batman-Miss Martian relationship was all about how hard it must be to work for Batman.
And Eric didn't even have the advantage of being able to turn invisible.
With a wish.
I want to know how Jonathan Callan got to see the movie before tonight.
You know, he told him about it. Listen, you're at it. Acting also is on an NDA. It's fine.
Writers tend to act out the movies for their friends, and they play every character.
Yeah.
Especially at bars.
Now I have to tell you guys, I am not easy to make laugh at all. And when I read the script, oh my goodness, I couldn't stop. So good and so much fun. And then they played back what Kevin did for me, and I was laughing so hard. I think I flubbed a few takes, maybe. But yeah, it was just so much fun. And it's somebody that has to stand up for their own and pretend that you're okay. You know, I'm one of the team, and I can do this, promise. And then you have your moment that you're like, oh, okay, I'm here. I'm having that moment right now. So yeah, it was a lot of fun. Thank you.
Some of that color in Batman when he's playing in this relationship, there's so much darkness to him and so much weight to him that I always look for any opportunity to contrast that with something lighter, with something ironic. And so the banter was someplace I could find that. And I'm always looking for that in the character because he can be so dark.
Broody.
That it's just, you look for any moment that's a different color. And those are great other colors for me.
I also really enjoyed that they're used to being epic heroes, and she finds them really cool. So it's a little reminder that they're really cool, whether they're used to being as epic as they are or not. It's really cool. So I think that brought a little bit of lightness to that too.
Thank you, Josh. Next.
Hi, I'm Steven. When Andrea Romano cast Kevin, Susan, and George, timeless, perfect, spot-on casting. And as you guys have mentioned, you know the characters really well. Live action, for better or worse, those actors come and go. Is there anyone that when you guys watch TV or movies, as a fan yourself, you're like, I want them to play Batman, Superman, or Wonder Woman?
No one.
No.
No one. I can't think of anyone. I can't. Alive. Truth. Who could play any of these roles? Can you?
No. My mind's drawing a blank.
I got nothing.
Boy.
Thank you, Stephen.
Thank you, Stephen, for trying to recast our role.
That's an all-time classic.
Yes, sir.
Hey guys, my name's Eric. My favorite is almost always Batman, but Miss Martian was pretty fun.
Oh no.
Sorry, Batman.
My question's for the writers. I just wanted to ask about the rules of time travel in this universe.
Yes, Eric, what are the rules of time?
What's
Discuss this at length.
heroes going back like a day earlier at the end there and helping more?
Well, you know what? It's interesting. This came up in an episode of Justice League Action, and what Kevin's line to Booster Gold was, I couldn't possibly explain the intricacies of time travel to someone without a library card. Now you, sir, have a library card, but Booster, on the other hand, wouldn't. However, Eric can explain it very easily.
Time travel is extremely hard because the Earth is moving through space at 67,000 miles an hour. So that's why when they time travel backwards, they end up in space at the beginning of the movie, because you can't really account for where the Earth is. It's really complicated. It's a huge calculation, and difficulties ensue.
Does that answer your question?
And you can get a no prize if you top it, and we'll pay you.
It involves a lot of hand waving.
Yes.
Thank you, Eric. Yes, sir.
That was a good question. That's a great question. I'd love to see these guys sweat. You're next.
Hey,
Next.
hello.
How you doing?
My name is Josh, and my favorite character is Batman. My question is for Kevin. How was it working with Mark Hamill?
Oh.
He was in this movie.
He was so good in this.
Mark wasn't in this movie. Mark Hamill is acting, as I've said before, is as much about reacting as it is about acting. You're often only as good as the people you have to work with. If they give you so much, you just have so much more to react to, and it feeds you. Which is why Warner Brothers and Bruce and Andrea always try to get the actors together in a booth. They prefer to have people working together. One of the blessings I've had in playing Batman was the cast that I've had to work with, the actors. And Mark Hamill is number one among that. He's just a generous, wonderfully giving person, genuinely. I wish you could see him in the booth. He gets such joy out of watching other actors work. There's no jealousy there. There's no tension there. He literally sits there like this. He'll be like this. He looks like a 12-year-old waiting for Santa, you know, when he's watching you work. And he just gets such joy out of what you give him. And then he gives it back to you. Oh, Betty, you know, he just gets so crazy with his Joker. And he's got that kind of Jim Carrey rubbery face thing going, where he's like, oh, Betty, you know, you think he's just going to devour the microphone. And then there's the whole spit take thing, you know. When you're in the room with him, you just want to have an umbrella because he's spitting all over you. Does that answer your question?
We have time for one last question. Make it a doozy.
All right. My name's Don. My favorite performance in the film was Bruce Timm's Two-Face, hands down.
Oh,
So my question is actually for Bruce. Have you ever considered voicing more characters, or is there a role that you would like to voice?
No. I generally act. I like playing characters like Two-Face because they're more of a character voice. Now here's the thing. Originally, I played the Doctor in Arkham Asylum, and a different actor played Two-Face because, again, when we recorded it, we did not know it was going to be in this style. So it didn't really matter to me what Two-Face sounded like. It didn't sound like Richard Mall at all, and it was fine. But then when we switched the look of the show, it's like, nope, he's got to sound like a Richard Mall sound-alike. And fortunately, my acting performance as the Doctor was hopeless. It was terrible. So the other actor and I switched parts. So because I knew I could kind of do Richard Mall. So it's a lot more fun for me to play monsters than it is to play like guys who say expository dialogue. I can't really make that stuff come to life because I'm not really a trained actor.
but I do like to get in there and goof around, and so yeah, if I'm playing Solomon Grundy or Two-Face, that's my sweet spot.
All right, well, I want you to give a big round of applause first to yourselves for being here, supporting the line, running out and buying the digital copy tomorrow and Blu-ray on the 16th. I want you to say thank you to Jim Creed, Eric Carrasco, Sam Liu, Bruce Tim, Daniela Bobadilla, Kevin Conroy, Susan Eisenberg, George Newbern, Smalley Montano, Philip Anthony Rodriguez, and Elyes Gabel. Thanks, we'll see you in San Diego, maybe with something special, okay?
Once again, ladies and gentlemen, let's hear it for the creative team and cast of the world premiere of Justice League versus the Fatal Five and our special guest moderator, Mr. Gary Mariano.
Where's Bo? Hey, all right, you're there. Good. I need Luke, Andres, Stefan, Edgardo, and Eric to meet me over on that side in about, meet me on that side in about 5 minutes, all right?